Ah, there we are. It is once more working again. Greetings. I am Galhard. Again, relating the stories and the adventures that we have had. And some unfortunate turns in this one. But I will get into that as we go. We were tracking the leader of the Red Brands from Phandalin, a wizard named Glassstaff, who had vanished on us. We returned back to the town where it appeared that he had been fleeing to, but he was nowhere to be seen. We could not track him. The tracks that he had left behind led to the inn that we had not investigated, which was called the Stonehill Inn. Bit nicer place than the Sleeping Giant, as it turns out. But it was a dead end. We talked to the owner of the inn, a man named Goblin. When we told him of our quarry, he insisted that he had not seen him, and it seemed believable. It appears that this wizard had the ability to vanish from sight. So, tracking him was very, very difficult. Eventually, they found tracks which showed that he had departed town. For some reason, our secret finder is very, very bloody-minded when it comes to dealing with criminals. He wanted to go out immediately and find this Glassstaff and put an end to him. I did not see it as being something we needed to do. We had broken the back of his group. The town was now safe, and if he returned, a bad fate was going to befall him. Also, we had had a busy day for adventurers who were not so experienced, so rest seemed to be appropriate. Eventually, the group agreed to explore the Stonehill Inn. Our secret finder rented out the entire building with the exception of one room that had already been occupied by a female traveler. So we had good beds to sleep in, although still just human-sized, so the floor more than sufficed. It was plenty comfortable. The morning, we decided to set out after the goblins. Mostly, appears that we are going to be doomed to forever having 101 other things to do. The group wished to talk to the master of the town. Apparently, this person was not picked because of any great qualities that they had. He wins a popularity contest among the people. Oh, what was his name again? It was Harbin. Apparently a grotesquely bloated man with few brains. Primarily a coward in the face of these Red Brands. But that could be why he's still alive, admittedly. He seemed rather confused and shocked as the group related the deeds that had taken place. I was not present. The rest of the group confronted him, and I think they attempted to wring out some sort of a new contract against the goblins we were set to go and deal with to try to liberate our employer. And that dwarf... Well, I'll get to that. When he heard that Gundren was missing, he was also concerned that the representative from the army of Waterdeep had been traveling with him and was also missing. We had determined that we would try to find him as well. It would help the town out. I, meantime, had no desire to meet with some official of this little town, so I went back to the Lion Shield Coster and informed them that the Red Brands would not be a nuisance to them any longer, or a threat. They were very, very happy to hear that. There were a number of children around who had me relate the story, and I told them an amusing anecdote about bread all twisted up into knots, and that was what I had done to several of the Red Brands. They were very excited, and, of course, I gave credit for these actions to our company, the Grand Order, attempting to reinforce that we are a group that is present to help people and to spread our fame. It may be tarnished after the deeds that caused the company to sunder itself, and now that we are part of it, it is upon us to try to rekindle the honor and trust that people may put in our group. So, the folk at the Coster were very impressed and grateful and offered us a flat 10% discount on anything that we should purchase, them mostly being dealers in arms and armor, as well as the various sundry items that the townsfolk could use. I had no need for anything, but I returned to my group and informed them of the bargain that I had negotiated for. In truth, I didn't have to do much negotiation. They seemed to be good business people and respectful of our talents. So, we prepared to set out again. Except this time there was a need to go and talk to Rosaria at her place, negotiate the transfer of the Red Brand prisoner that I had taken, turning him over to the master of the town who lives in the city hall, and there is a jail within, so that he could be put into the jail. We also pressed into service Rosaria and Leosin, who are staying in Phandalin for a time to make sure the town can get on its feet. They are going to keep a close eye upon the manor house that once was controlled by the Red Brands. It turns out that the secret catacombs and the areas throughout the secret doors that we knew of were not known to the rank and file of the town, so such dungeons might be useful to us if we decide to use Phandalin as a fallback point or a stronghold in the future. The manor could be very useful, and I suspect the town in its gratitude could give the lands and ruins up to us at a relatively good rate. So, never really fancied myself to be a holder of land, but the folk down here below the mountain seem to go for that kind of thing, so perhaps that could be good. So, we then went to the ambush site. We needed to find the tracks for the goblins so that we could follow them to their lair. We accomplished this easily enough. It turns out a good number of us are very skilled at tracking. Galhard proved his abilities, and some of the others also have their skills. Not all of us have these skills. Perhaps we will have to have some education for those who are oblivious to the secrets of the wilds if they ever need to survive in the wilds themselves or need to track another when I am not there, we should train them. But we found the tracks easily enough and followed them along flat lands that were mostly used for agriculture or some wild tangles until we got to some hilly lands. These low-rolling hills, at first, well, there wasn't anything of any great excitement until we saw one that had a cave, somewhat obscured by brambles. It had a stream coming out of it, betraying its location, but it seemed like the ideal hole for a group of goblins. So I walked up to the cave, as you would when you wish to go somewhere. The others were content enough to follow behind me, and eventually we got up to the mouth of the cave to find that in amongst the briars, there was a small path and cleared area, an observation platform, and 2 goblins who were not being very observant. They did not spy upon us as we rose up, and we reacted at about the same time. Of course, it involved a lot of hammer throwing on the behalf of our dwarven hammer enthusiast, Hammerman. I moved up to intimidate one of the goblins, but they didn't pose any fight. They died quickly, which we thought might be quietly enough, but it turns out that these goblins had chained up some wolves, starving them. They broke free of the piton that had been holding them and were chained together, but were free to come out and attack us. Wolves are not a common sight in my homeland, and I mistook them for dogs, who I rather like. So I grabbed one and held it close, attempting to convince it that we were not threats. My party members slew the other wolves quite quickly. The wolf was an energetic fellow. He nipped me once when the Hammerman decided that he was... Hammer Dwarf would probably be better. Hammer Dwarf. When Hammer Dwarf decided that he wanted to pet the wolf, he nearly lost a finger to it. Very energetic. Then I reached into my pack, holding it against me with one arm, and I shoved some food into its mouth, which it seemed to enjoy. After that, it allowed me to grasp the chain that was holding it and stay with it. It tolerated my presence without attacking me further. We were friends. I named him George. Friends might be a bit strong, but we had an understanding. It wanted to kill goblins. I wanted to save our dwarf who was being held by goblins. It worked. So, we entered into the cave. We didn't see any more goblins, although from the smell, it was clear that the wolves had been chained into the entryway of the cavern, and that there were more goblins within, and had been here for a while. This was only a day and a half out away from Phandalin, so their scouts missed this. This was a danger that we saved the town from. There may be rewards for this. We were going to try to root out goblins, but George could not get their scent, well, at least the direction that they were in. So while I led us to the direction I felt Tamora was leading us through, Tamora wanted me to go to the left. So we were starting to go to the left when we heard a deluge of water come down from the back of the cavern at us. A few got knocked about by it, but nothing serious. It seemed a crude defense. But where there is a defense, there are defenders, so we rallied and went in that direction. we found that there were two damned, I believe they called them reservoirs, one having been recently full of water and the other one still with water. There were 3 goblins with hammers who were beset at trying to break this reservoir up. There was a waterfall which fed these, the overflow which created the stream, and also in the room there were a number of hobgoblins, 3, and 1 large bugbear, who was also holding a chained wolf. Our wolves' eyes met in wolf-to-wolf mental combat. It was impressive. His wolf was better fed than mine was, though, unfortunately. The bugbear boasted that he was... oh, what was his name again? Krug? Something barbaric and... Clerg. Yes, he was Clerg. Clerg thought he was the mightiest. Clerg was going to find out otherwise. He told us that he had a human prisoner, but that the dwarf had been sent onward to the castle. This was annoying. But our dwarf is in another castle. But this human, who apparently was the Water Davian that we were also inclined to rescue, was clearly there. Eventually our group got tired of listening to the bugbear posture, and once we realized that he did not have our employer, it was time for, well, armament. Hammer Dwarf was quick to pull out his hammers and start throwing them at Clerg. He was not very effective. It was kind of comical sometimes how he just throws them about like a spastic child. But when he hits, it is sometimes impressive, I will admit. I had decided that this Clerg was a good foe, but not very smart. The hobgoblins and goblins had all moved up over the one reservoir to shoot us with arrows. I decided to stop this. I moved up and allowed my wolfy companion to attempt to gain vengeance. I grasped him by the scruff of his neck and hindquarters and assisted him in attacking the enemy. He fell into their midst with a great amount of biting and growling. Not a lot of connecting and bloodletting, unfortunately. And as I prepared to move up to offer support to my wolfy friend with the morning star that I had wrested from the bugbear in the ruins under the manor, they isolated and unfortunately slew George. I lost my temper a bit somewhere in there. I honestly can't say that I remember everything, but the others told me that I had moved up and smashed down a goblin, and the hobgoblins, seeing that we were attacking, fled into an adjoining chamber, for leaving the goblins to occupy us, and the wolf who was Clerg's. Clerg decided to challenge our entire group himself and moved up. This turned out to be a bad idea, as he was slaughtered by our combined forces of our group. Everyone else had basically decided to key off on their leader and took him down very quickly. So, his wolf himself actually proved to be more of a difficult target, as he tripped us once or twice. Still, though, the wolf went down, I'm told. Once I saw the hobgoblins fleeing, I was still enraged. They, as it turned out, had an escape to get back towards the entrance of the cave quickly, They had a natural chimney that they were able to descend down with the help of a rope. I decided to help them without the rope. I charged, tackling one and driving down the chimney, smashing into another. Perhaps not the wisest move. Thinking about it, I was already shot with arrows and somewhat damaged. And even my rage could not protect me from several minor injuries. But I took the glorious battle to them. The others moved back around once they heard that the fight was now behind them and offered support. I smashed one of the hobgoblins, killing him. I left the morning star on his body and picked up his sword. It's a nice enough long sword, I suppose. It will do till I find another weapon. Ultimately, the haze of anger and focus ended as the last of the hobgoblins died. It turns out that our secret finder isn't the greatest of warriors. He basically fell in battle against the goblin. At the same time, I heard that he did slay the goblin with his final stroke, but the goblin also took him down. Fortunately, our miracle man was able to move forward and heal the... Well, he didn't really heal him. He just stopped the secret finder from dying. So, as we were coming together, holding our wounds, assessing our situation, what to do about the rest of the lair, as there were numerous passages out, Hammer Dwarf decided he was going to go and explore on his own. I have always been given to understand that dwarves are wise and plan for the future with their long lives. This one will not last very long, I think. He wandered off on his own and found another group of goblins in their sleeping quarters. He also, coincidentally, found the human diplomat, who was being threatened, had been badly abused, and was now being held at knife point. The dwarf ran away. So it goes. Back to us to tell us the scenario. I received some healing from our miracle man, enough to feel like I could make a go of taking on a pack of goblins. I steeled up my focus again to bring forth my anger and wrath if need be, along with my new sword, an axe in hand, ready to go in against our foes. Well, they were holding the human at knife point. If we had made a move, they would have killed him, which would not have accomplished any great ends. The goblins just wanted to leave. I saw no point in not allowing them to leave if they would keep their hostage alive. We told them they were free of the influence of Clerg. They demanded to see his head. I went back, took off the head, showed them. They were satisfied. We allowed them to leave. There was no point in treachery, and quite honestly, I find deception of that sort distasteful. So, we rescued the Waterdavian military commander. His name was... what is it? Sildar. Apparently he had a reputation as a leader of men. Now coming to investigate the ill deeds at Phandalin. Really, this drow that's supposed to be her friend really needs to find her more often. But, yes. So we rescued him. He had some revelations for us. This glass staff was apparently the noble that they had kidnapped Yargo. He was supposed to set up a constabulary for Phandelin, preserving law and order there. This did not happen. For whatever purpose, he instead either expanded the Red Brands or founded them, and held the area in a fist of chaos and uncertainty, while he stayed under the manor and worked on his alchemy. Sildon was not happy to hear this, but he did not have a destination we should search for this ne'er-do-well. Quite honestly, I think we are going to need some magics of our own to locate him if we do encounter him again. I do not have confidence that I can hit a foe that I cannot see. With Tymora leading the way, I have no doubt that we will be victorious, but I would like it to be because we dominated our enemy and mastered him, rather than a stray stroke that might rip his throat out. We return Sildar back to Phandelin. It is good to reunite him there, and after that we have several leads that we can follow. Apparently there is a town called Conyberry that we are interested in going to. The Harpers would like us to go there because there is a banshee there. Not a deadly, well, immediately deadly banshee, but one that others have learned to negotiate with. She can be appeased and use powers of divination to answer questions. The Harpers are interested in a spell book of a long-dead wizard of these parts. What is in it? I don't know. I am not a wizard. But, to the point, we are then going to have to decide where next to go. I am all for trying to find this castle, knowing that the Goblin King is there, and that he is almost certainly under the sway of this black spider. I would like to take another weapon out of the hands of this spider. The goblins that we freed basically had confirmed that they were under this king's sway, and that he was himself a tool of this spider, so a falling out is definitely in order. We have to go to liberate our employer. So, wherever this castle may be, we need to find it soon, before Gundrun is no more. We did find out, however, what made the dwarf so special. He had knowledge of a ruin, a particularly potent one where magical items of yore were forged in ancient mines. So, we believe that he was employing us to challenge the dangers of these mines initially, and now he has a map to them that we need to recover. He himself and the map may be complicated. Many things that are complicated are made that much easier, though, with the application of a good sword. So, that is where we are heading next, to try to find out where this castle is. We hopefully will be able to find some clues within Phandelin itself. There are those who know different things, and we just happen to know a bard who may have such knowledge, or at least rumors and lore. But for that, I am Galhard. We will continue on our adventure, and I will relate what I can if I survive our next encounters, Tymora willing. Thank you, and farewell. And if you have seen Drist, tell him to come and get his panther. It may like me, but it is causing havoc to the chickens of the area. It, not nearly as fearsome as it looks, but, yes. To a Goliath, it's cute. I can understand to humans it may seem fearsome, though. So, Drist, if you're out there, come and get it. Thank you, and farewell.